Benjamin Carter's hands shook as he held his 2-month-old son against his chest. Samuel's lips had turned pale. His breathing came shallow and weak. 3 weeks without proper feeding had carved hollows into the baby's cheeks. Ben pressed his forehead to Samuel's tears, freezing on his face. "Please," he whispered to the empty room. "Please don't take him too." Outside, the Montana wind screamed. Inside, silence answered. Then, knock, knock, knock. Ben's head snapped up. Through the frosted window, a woman's silhouette wavered in the falling snow. Before we begin, if this story touches your heart, hit that subscribe button and stay with us until the end. Comment where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's start from the beginning. Copper Ridge, Montana Territory, November 1887. The forge had gone cold 3 hours ago. Ben Carter stood in his blacksmith shop, hammer hanging loose in his right hand, staring at the anvil like he'd forgotten what it was for. Iron stock lay scattered across the floor. Half-finished horseshoes cooled in crooked rows. Orders piled up on the workbench, unread, untouched. His apprentice, a kid named Tommy, had stopped coming 2 weeks back. Didn't need to explain why. Everyone in Copper Ridge knew. Ben set the hammer down. His hands wouldn't stop shaking anyway. He locked the shop door and walked the 100 yards to his cabin. Snow crunched under his boots. The wind cut through his coat like it wasn't even there. November in Montana didn't ask permission. It took what it wanted. The cabin door swung open before he reached it. "Ben." Jack Morrison stood in the doorway, face twisted with worry. "Where the hell you been? Samuel's been screaming for an hour." Ben pushed past him. The sound hit him like a physical thing. His son's cries, hoarse and desperate, sawing through the small space. Sarah Morrison sat in the rocking chair Samuel clutched against her shoulder. She bounced him, hummed whispered soft nonsense. Nothing worked. "I tried warm water with honey," Sarah said, voice tight. "Tried singing, tried walking. He won't take anything, Ben. He just won't." Ben crossed the room in 3 strides and took Samuel from her arms. The baby's face was red, scrunched slick with tears and snot. His little fists clenched and unclenched. His body felt lighter than it should, than it had yesterday, than it had the day before. "It's all right, son," Ben murmured, cradling him close. "Papa's here. Papa's got you." Samuel screamed louder. Sarah stood wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes were wet. "Ben, you gotta do something. He's getting weaker." "You think I don't know that?" The words came out harsher than he meant. "You think I ain't trying?" "That ain't what she's saying," Jack cut in, voice firm. "But Sarah's been here 3 hours. Before that, Mrs. Hutchins sat with him all morning before her daughter came to fetch her. You can't keep..." "Keep what?" Ben turned on him. "Keep trying to keep my son alive. That what you're gonna tell me to stop doing?" Jack's jaw worked. He looked at Sarah. She touched his arm. "We'll come back tomorrow," she said quietly. "Check on you both." "Don't need checking on." "Ben." "I said I'm fine." Ben turned away, rocking Samuel against his chest. The baby's cries had dissolved into weak, hiccuping sobs. "Thank you for sitting with him, but I got it from here." Sarah opened her mouth. Jack shook his head. They left. The door clicked shut. Ben stood alone in the cabin with his dying son. He tried the bottle again at sunset. Goat's milk still warm from Mrs. Henderson's farm. He'd paid double for it this morning. Begged her to sell it to him, even though she needed it for her own grandkids. "Please, Samuel." Ben tilted the bottle toward the baby's mouth. "Just a little. Just try." Samuel turned his head, whimpered, pushed weakly at the bottle with one tiny hand. "Come on, son, please." The baby's face crumpled. A thin wail leaked out. Ben set the bottle on the table. He pulled Samuel close, pressing his lips to the baby's forehead. "I don't know what to do." he whispered. "I don't know how to fix this." Samuel cried. Quiet now. Tired. Barely any strength left in it. Ben closed his eyes. Margaret had known. Margaret had always known. When Samuel was hungry, when he needed changing, when something hurt that Ben couldn't see, she'd just known. "You gotta feel it," she'd told him once, smiling that smile that made the whole world make sense. "A baby talks with his whole body. You just gotta listen." Ben was listening. He'd been listening for 3 weeks ever since the fever took her. Ever since the midwife had pressed her lips together and shook her head and said those words that turned Ben's life inside out. "I'm sorry. The infection spread too fast. There's nothing more we can do." Margaret had lasted 2 days. Held Samuel once more before the shaking started. Kissed Ben's cheek. Whispered, "Take care of him. He's gonna need you so much." Then she was gone. And Samuel had been crying ever since. Ben had tried everything. The town doctor, drunk more often than sober, had suggested goat's milk. Some babies take to it better than cows. Samuel hadn't. Mrs. Hutchins, the midwife, had tried spooning sugar water into his mouth. Just to give him something. Samuel had choked on it. Sarah Morrison had offered to try nursing him, even though her youngest was 4 years old, and she'd long since dried up. Maybe if he tries, something will come. Nothing had. "Ain't no women in town with new babies?" Jack had told him last week, voice heavy with something that sounded like grief. I asked around, nobody. Ben had ridden 10 miles to the next town, asked at the general store, the church, the saloon. Same answer everywhere. "Sorry, mister, ain't nobody nursing right now." He'd come home empty-handed, and Samuel kept crying. Night fell hard and fast. Ben lit the lamp on the table, fed the stove until heat pushed back against the cold creeping through the walls. Changed Samuel's diaper, the cloth hung loose on him now, his little legs thin as kindling. "You gotta eat," Ben said, trying the bottle again. "Please, Sam, please try for me." Samuel turned his face into Ben's chest, mouthed weakly at the fabric of his shirt, searching for something that wasn't there. Ben's throat closed up. He set the bottle aside and just held his son, rocked him in the chair Margaret had loved, hummed the tune she used to sing. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." His voice cracked. He stopped. Samuel's cries faded to whimpers, then to silence. The baby's eyes drifted shut. His breathing evened out, shallow but steady. Ben didn't move, didn't dare. Just sat there in the lamplight, holding the only piece of Margaret he had left, and prayed. He wasn't good at praying, hadn't stepped foot in a church since the funeral, hadn't been able to look Reverend Grant in the eye when the man had tried to tell him it was God's plan. God's plan. As if there was a plan that made this make sense. But Ben prayed anyway. Clumsy, desperate words that tumbled through his mind. "If you're listening, if you give a damn at all, don't take him. Please. I'll do anything. Just don't take him." The wind howled outside. Snow hissed against the windows. No answer came. Samuel woke at midnight screaming. Ben jerked awake. The lamp had burned low. The fire in the stove had died to embers. Cold pressed in from every corner. All right. Ben stood, legs stiff, back aching. "I got you." He tried the bottle again. Samuel fought it. Turned his head, gagged when Ben managed to get the nipple between his lips. "Please, son, you gotta eat." The baby arched his back, pushed away. His face went red, then purple. His mouth opened in a soundless scream. Then he stopped breathing. Ben's heart seized. "Samuel!" The baby's body went rigid. His eyes rolled back. "Samuel!" Ben shook him gentle at first, then harder. "Breathe. Come on, breathe." Nothing. Panic roared through him. He turned Samuel over, held him face down over his forearm, patted his back. "Breathe, damn you, breathe." 5 seconds. 10. Samuel gasped, sucked in air, started crying again. Ben's legs gave out. He dropped into the chair, clutching Samuel to his chest, shaking so hard he thought he might fly apart. "Oh God! Oh God!" The baby screamed and screamed. Ben pressed his face to Samuel's hair and broke. Sobs tore through him. 3 weeks of holding it together, of staying strong, of trying to be what Margaret would have wanted, it all shattered. "I can't do this," he gasped. "Margaret, I can't. I don't know how." Samuel cried. Ben cried. The wind screamed outside. And then, knock, knock, knock. Ben's head jerked up. He swiped at his face, blinking hard. Another knock. Urgent. Insistent. He stood, legs unsteady, and crossed to the door. Opened it. A woman stood on his porch. Snow clung to her dark cloak. Ice crusted her hair. Her face was pale, her lips almost blue. She clutched a small carpet bag in one hand. But that wasn't what made Ben's breath catch. It was her eyes, wide, desperate, locked on Samuel. And the 2 dark stains spreading across the front of her dress. "Please," she whispered. "I heard him crying." Ben stepped back. Didn't think about it. Just moved aside. The woman stumbled in. He shut the door against the wind and turned to find her standing in the middle of his cabin, staring at Samuel like she'd seen a ghost. "He's hungry," she said, not a question. "Won't take a bottle." Ben's voice came out rough. "Won't take anything. He's been like this since—" "How old?" "2 months." "When did his mother—" She stopped, swallowed. "I'm sorry. That was rude." "3 weeks ago." Ben shifted Samuel in his arms. The baby had stopped crying. He stared at the woman with wide, wet eyes. "You looking for somewhere to stay? Storm's bad out there. I can feed him." Ben blinked. "What?" The woman's hands moved to the front of her dress. They shook. My body still—" Her voice broke. "I had a son, 7 months ago. He died, 2 months back. But the milk, it doesn't stop. It won't stop." Ben stared at her. She looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, let me help him, please." Samuel made a sound. A weak, mewling cry. The woman's breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her chest. "It hurts," she whispered. "Every time I hear a baby cry, it hurts, and please, just let me feed him. Once. Just once." Ben should have said no, should have asked questions. Asked her name, where she came from, what she was doing walking through a blizzard in the middle of the night. But Samuel whimpered again, and the woman's face crumpled, and Ben heard himself say, "All right." "Tja," she set her bag on the floor. Untied her cloak and let it fall. Underneath she wore a simple gray dress, travel-worn and damp. "Could you—" She gestured to the rocking chair. "Could I sit?" Yeah, of course." Ben helped her into the chair. His hands brushed her shoulders. She was shaking. "What's his name?" she asked. "Samuel." "That's a good name." She looked up at him. "Can I hold him?" Ben hesitated. Then he lowered Samuel into her arms. The baby settled against her immediately, stopped fidgeting, turned his face toward her chest. The woman's breath caught. "Oh." She fumbled with the buttons on her dress. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't manage them. "Here." Ben knelt in front of her. "Let me." He'd unbuttoned Margaret's dresses 100 times. This was different. His fingers felt clumsy, too big. But he got the first 3 undone. "That's enough," the woman whispered. "Thank you." She pulled the fabric aside. Ben turned away fast, heat flooding his face. "You don't have to," she started. "Yeah, I do." He crossed to the stove, busied himself feeding it more wood. Behind him, he heard the rustle of fabric, a soft gasp, then silence, then a wet, eager sound. Sucking. Ben's hands stilled on the stove door. "Oh," The woman breathed. "Oh, sweetheart, there you go. That's it." Samuel made a sound Ben had never heard from him. A satisfied hum deep in his throat. The woman laughed. It came out half-sob. "You were so hungry, weren't you? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you were hungry." Ben turned slowly. She sat in the chair, head bowed, auburn hair falling forward to hide her face. Samuel was latched on his little fists, kneading his eyes closed in bliss. The woman cried silently. Tears dripped off her chin onto Samuel's blanket. Ben's chest felt too tight. He sank onto the edge of the bed, unable to look away. This stranger, this woman whose name he didn't know. She'd shown up out of a blizzard and given his son what Ben couldn't: life. 10 minutes passed. 15. Samuel finally pulled away, milk-drunk and heavy-lidded. The woman adjusted her dress, covering herself quickly. She looked up at Ben. "He'll need the other side in a few hours," she said quietly. "And he'll want to eat every 2 to 3 hours after that. At his age—" Her voice wavered. "At his age they eat often." Ben nodded, couldn't speak. "I'm Eliza," she said. "Eliza Thornton. Most people call me Ellie." "Ben Carter." He cleared his throat. "That's thank you. I don't know how to thank you." "Don't." She looked down at Samuel, who'd fallen asleep against her. "Don't thank me. I needed this as much as he did." "Still." Ellie brushed a finger over Samuel's cheek. "Where's his mother buried?" "Church Cemetery, East Side." "What was her name?" "Margaret." "That's pretty." Ellie smiled, small and sad. "My son was Thomas. We buried him in Boston." "That where you're from?" "Originally." She shifted, wincing slightly. "My husband died 6 weeks ago. His family, they blamed me. For Thomas. For Robert's drinking. For all of it. So I left. Headed where? I don't know." She looked around the cabin. At the cold stove, the unwashed dishes, the pile of laundry in the corner. "I got off the stage here because I ran out of money. Thought I'd find work. But the boarding house was full and it was snowing and I just started walking. Could have died out there." "I know." She met his eyes. "Didn't seem like the worst thing." Ben understood that, more than he wanted to. Samuel stirred, made a sleepy sound. "He should sleep for a bit now," Ellie said. "Few hours maybe, then he'll wake hungry again." "You planning to stay?" The question hung between them. Ellie looked down at the baby in her arms. "Would you want me to—" Ben thought about the last 3 weeks. The crying. The bottles Samuel wouldn't take. The weight of watching his son starve and not being able to stop it. "Yeah," he said roughly. "I would. I don't want money. Wasn't gonna offer any. And I'm not—" She stopped. Started again. "I'm not looking for anything. From you or anyone. I just need somewhere safe. For a little while. Until I figure out what comes next." "You can have the bed," Ben said. "I'll sleep on the floor." "That's not necessary." "It is." He stood. "You're doing me the favor here. Least I can do is make sure you're comfortable." Ellie looked like she wanted to argue. Then Samuel sighed in her arms, and something in her face softened. "All right," she whispered. "Thank you." "Should be me thanking you." "Then we're even." Ben almost smiled. "Deal." He made up the bed while Ellie rocked Samuel. Found clean sheets in the trunk at the foot. Margaret's sheets. They still smelled like her lavender and wood smoke. His hands stilled. "You all right?" Ellie's voice quiet behind him. "Yeah." Ben shook the sheet out, smoothed it over the mattress. "Just been a long night." "I imagine it's been a long 3 weeks." He didn't answer. Couldn't. "You can talk about her," Ellie said softly. "About Margaret. I won't mind." "Don't seem right. You just got here." "I told you about Thomas." "That's different." "How?" Ben tucked the corners of the sheet under the mattress. Just is. Silence. Then, my mother-in-law told me I cried too much. After Thomas died. Said it wasn't proper. That good Christian women bore their grief with dignity. Ellie's voice went hard. I told her good Christian women didn't let their grandchildren starve because they were too proud to help. She threw me out that night. Ben turned. Ellie sat in the rocking chair staring at nothing, Samuel asleep against her shoulder. Some people, he said carefully, don't know grief until it kicks them in the teeth. And some people get kicked and still don't learn. Yeah. Ellie looked at him. You don't have to protect me from your pain, Ben. I've got enough of my own. Room for more won't hurt. He wanted to argue, to say it wasn't her burden to carry. But the truth was, he was tired. Tired of holding it all alone. Tired of pretending he was fine when every breath felt like drowning. She liked to sing, he said quietly. Drove me crazy some mornings. I'd be trying to sleep and she'd be up making breakfast, singing loud as anything. Ellie smiled. What did she sing? Everything. Church hymns, songs her mama taught her. Made up nonsense half the time. Ben sat on the edge of the bed. After Samuel was born, she'd sing to him every night. Same song. Some Irish lullaby her grandmother used to sing. Do you remember it? Some. He hummed a few bars. Off-key and rough, but there. That's beautiful. Sounds better when she did it. I'm sure. Ellie stood carefully cradling Samuel. But I bet she'd be glad you're trying. She crossed to the bed. Ben stood giving her room. She laid Samuel down in the center, tucking the blankets around him. He'll stay asleep for a while, she said. But I should stay close, in case he wakes. You take the bed, Ben said. I'll pull the chair over. Ben. Not arguing about this. He dragged the rocking chair next to the bed. You need rest same as him. Ellie looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you. She climbed into bed, moving slow and stiff. Curled on her side facing Samuel. Her hand rested on his stomach, rising and falling with each breath. Ben settled into the chair, tilted his head back, closed his eyes. Ben. Ellie's voice barely a whisper. Yeah. I meant what I said. About needing this. I haven't... She stopped. I haven't felt useful since Thomas died. Like there was any reason to keep going. But tonight, when I heard Samuel cry... You don't have to explain. I want to. Rustling as she shifted. It felt like maybe there was a reason. Maybe I'm supposed to be here. Even if it's just for tonight. Ben opened his eyes. Looked at her. At Samuel sleeping between them. Maybe you are, he said quietly. Ellie smiled. Small and fragile, but real. Good night, Ben. Good night, Ellie. The lamp burned low. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside, for the first time in 3 weeks, the cabin was quiet. Samuel slept his belly full. Ellie slept her burden a little lighter. And Ben sat watch over them both, afraid to sleep. Afraid to wake and find it had all been a dream. But morning came. And Ellie was still there. Samuel woke at dawn, fussing soft and hungry. Ben jerked awake in the chair, neck stiff back, screaming. Ellie was already sitting up, reaching for the baby, before her eyes were fully open. I've got him, she murmured, voice thick with sleep. Ben stood stretched, winced at the crack in his spine. I'll get the stove going. He fed wood into the belly of the stove until flames caught and heat began pushing back the cold. Outside, the storm had passed. Pale morning light filtered through the frost on the windows. The world looked clean, new. Behind him came the rustle of fabric, the quiet sounds of Ellie settling Samuel to nurse. Ben kept his back turned, busied himself putting coffee on. How long have you been awake? Ellie asked. Not long. Liar, I heard you moving around half the night. Ben glanced over his shoulder. She sat propped against the headboard, Samuel cradled in her arms, blanket pulled up for modesty. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders, tangled from sleep. "Couldn't settle?" he admitted. "Worried I'd leave." The question caught him off guard. He turned back to the stove. "Crossed my mind. I'm not going anywhere. Not yet." "What's not yet mean?" Ellie was quiet for a moment. Samuel made contented sounds. "I don't know," she said finally. "I'm figuring it out as I go." Fair enough. Ben poured coffee into 2 tin cups, brought one to her. "Thank you." She took it, careful not to jostle Samuel. Sipped. Made a face. Too strong. Too weak. But she smiled when she said it. "My husband liked his coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. Margaret liked hers with cream and sugar, used to tease her about it. What'd you call it? Candy coffee." Ellie laughed, soft and surprised. "That's terrible." She thought so too. Ben sat in the chair, cradled his own cup. Kept drinking it anyway. Said if God wanted her to drink bitter coffee, he wouldn't have made cream. Smart woman. She was. They fell quiet. The stove ticked. Samuel nursed his small fist, kneading Ellie's chest. "He's stronger already," Ellie said. "You can feel it, the way he latches." Relief flooded through Ben so sharp it hurt. Yeah. She looked down at Samuel. "He's going to be fine, Ben." Ben's throat closed. He nodded, not trusting his voice. "When was the last time you ate?" Ellie asked. "Yesterday. Maybe. Been busy. You're no good to him if you fall over." She shifted Samuel to her other side, adjusted her dress. "Is there food here I can cook?" "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Let me help Ben." He wanted to argue. Wanted to say he could manage. But the truth was, he couldn't remember the last real meal he'd had. And Ellie looked at him with those steady green eyes waiting. "There's eggs," he said. "Some bacon in the cold box outside. Bread's probably stale. I'll manage." She finished nursing Samuel, buttoned her dress, stood with the baby against her shoulder. "Here, take him while I cook." Ben took his son and Samuel settled against him without fussing. Just rested his cheek on Ben's shoulder and sighed. Something in Ben's chest cracked open. "Hey there, little man," he whispered. "You feeling better?" Samuel made a small sound. His hand curled into Ben's shirt. Ellie moved around the cabin, quiet and efficient. Found the skillet, the eggs, the bacon. Got everything started while Ben sat with Samuel and tried not to cry. The baby fell asleep against him. Full belly, warm body, finally content. "You're good with him," Ellie said from the stove. "Don't feel like it." "You are, I can tell." She cracked eggs into the pan. "He trusts you." "He's got no choice." "That's not true. Babies know. They feel what's real." She glanced over her shoulder. "He feels that you love him." Ben kissed the top of Samuel's head. "More than anything." "Then that's enough." Breakfast smelled like something close to normal. Ellie set a plate in front of Ben, eggs, bacon, toasted bread she'd somehow made edible. He ate with Samuel asleep in one arm, and it was the best food he'd tasted in weeks. "This is good," he said. "It's basic. It's good." Ellie sat across from him with her own plate. Ate slow, like she was afraid the food might disappear. Ben noticed the hollow look around her eyes, the way her collarbones stood out too sharp beneath her dress. "When'd you eat last?" he asked. "Yesterday, on the stage." "That all?" "I'm fine." "You're lying." She met his eyes. "So are you." Fair point. They finished eating in silence. Ben put Samuel in his cradle, an old thing Jack had helped him build when Margaret was pregnant. The baby didn't stir, just slept deep and peaceful. "I should probably head to the shop," Ben said. "Got work backed up." "You sure you should leave him?" "He's got you." Ellie's expression flickered. "Ben, I can't just... I'm a stranger. You don't know me." I know you saved my son's life. That's enough. He pulled on his coat. I'll be back by noon to check on you both. There's more wood outside if the stove gets low. Diapers are in the basket by the bed. Ben, you said you wanted to help. This is helping. He stopped at the door hand on the latch. Please, I need to work. Need to think about something other than... He couldn't finish. Ellie's face softened. All right. Go. We'll be fine. Ben nodded, left before he could change his mind. The walk to the shop felt strange, lighter somehow. The weight he'd been carrying for 3 weeks hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted, become bearable. Samuel was fed. Samuel was safe. Samuel was sleeping. It was enough. The shop was freezing when he opened it. Ben got the forge going, worked the bellows until heat bloomed. Picked up the first order on the stack, 3 horseshoes for Miller's draft horse. He lost himself in the work. The ring of hammer on anvil. The smell of hot iron. His hands remembered what to do even when his mind was elsewhere. 2 hours passed, then 3. The shop door opened. Ben looked up expecting a customer. Jack Morrison stepped inside, followed by Sarah. Morning, Jack said carefully. Ben set his hammer down. Morning. Heard you had a visitor last night, Sarah said. No judgment in her voice, just curiosity. Word travels fast. Tommy saw lights on at your place past midnight. Told his mama. She told, well, you know how it goes. Sarah moved closer. Is it true there's a woman staying with you? Her name's Ellie. She's helping with Samuel. Helping how? Ben met her eyes. She's nursing him. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, Ben. He's eating. First time in 3 weeks. Ben's voice caught. He's gonna be all right. Thank God. Sarah's eyes filled. Thank God. Jack stepped forward. This woman. Where'd she come from? Stage yesterday. From Boston. And she just what offered. She heard Samuel crying. She's got milk. Lost her own baby a few months back. Ben picked up his hammer again. She needed help same as we did. So she's staying? Jack asked. For now. Ben. Jack's voice went careful. People are gonna talk. Let them. I'm serious. A strange woman living in your house nursing your baby folks are gonna draw conclusions. What conclusions? Ben's hand tightened on the hammer. That I found someone to keep my son alive. That's supposed to be scandalous. No, but nothing. Ben turned back to the forge. Samuel's fed. That's all that matters. Sarah touched Jack's arm. He fell silent. Can we meet her? Sarah asked. Ellie? That's up to her. We'll stop by later. Bring some food. Maybe some of my old dresses if she needs them. She'd probably appreciate that. Sarah smiled. We're glad, Ben. Truly. This is an answer to prayer. Ben didn't respond. He wasn't ready to call it prayer. Didn't know what to call it yet. Jack and Sarah left. Ben went back to work. But the unease Jack had planted wouldn't leave. People were talking. Of course they were. Copper Ridge was small. Everyone knew everyone's business, and a strange woman living with a widower that was business folks would chew on for weeks. Ben pushed the thoughts aside. Shaped iron. Worked until his shoulders ached and his hands burned. At noon he closed the shop and headed home. The cabin smelled like soap when he walked in. Ellie stood at the wash basin scrubbing one of Samuel's blankets. The baby lay in his cradle awake and watching her with wide eyes. You cleaned? Ben said. Ellie glanced over. Hope that's all right. I needed something to do. It's fine. Good. He crossed to the cradle. Samuel looked up at him and made a happy sound. Ben's heart squeezed. Hey, son. He woke about an hour ago, Ellie said. Ate again. Been content since. He looks good. He's beautiful. Ellie wrung out this blanket, hung it near the stove to dry. You hungry? There's leftover bacon. I'm all right. Ben? Fine. Yeah, I'll eat. She fixed him a plate. They sat at the table, and it felt domestic in a way that made Ben's chest tight. Jack and Sarah came by the shop, he said. Ellie's hands stilled. What did they say? Asked about you. Sarah wants to stop by later. Bring some things. That's kind of her. She's good people. Ben paused. Jack said folks are talking. I figured they would. Doesn't bother you. Ellie was quiet for a moment. People talked in Boston. About Thomas dying. About Robert's drinking. About me leaving. She looked at him. I stopped caring what people thought when I buried my son. Their opinions can't hurt worse than that. Ben nodded slowly. Fair enough. But I don't want to make trouble for you. You're not. Ben, you're keeping Samuel alive. Anyone's got a problem with that, they can say it to my face. Ellie's expression softened. You're a good man. I'm desperate. Maybe. But you're still good. Ben didn't know what to say to that. So he just ate, and Ellie sat across from him and Samuel cooed from his cradle. It wasn't normal. Wasn't anything close to what life had been with Margaret. But it was something. And right now, something was enough. Sarah arrived mid-afternoon with a basket packed full. Jack followed behind carrying a crate. Don't mean to intrude, Sarah said, bustling through the door. Just wanted to... Oh! She stopped short, staring at Ellie. Ellie stood by the stove holding Samuel. She'd finger-combed her hair into a braid. Her dress was wrinkled, travel-worn. But she held herself straight, chin up. You must be Sarah, Ellie said. I am. And you're Ellie. Yes, ma'am. Oh, don't ma'am me. I'm not that old yet. Sarah set the basket on the table. I brought some things. Food mostly. Some dresses that might fit you. And she pulled out a cloth-wrapped bundle. Diapers, fresh sewn. Ellie's eyes went bright. You didn't have to do that. Course I did. Baby needs diapers. Sarah moved closer, peering at Samuel. Oh, look at him. He's got color in his cheeks now. He's eating well, Ellie said softly. Thanks to you. Sarah reached out, hesitated. May I? Ellie passed Samuel over. Sarah cradled him close, cooing. Jack set the crate down. Brought some extra firewood and milk, fresh this morning. Thank you, Ben said. Don't mention it. Jack looked at Ellie, then back to Ben. Something passed between them. A question. A warning. Ben ignored it. How long you planning to stay? Sarah asked Ellie, voice light. Casual. I don't know yet, Ellie said carefully. As long as Ben needs help, I suppose. And after that... Sarah, Jack said quietly. I'm just asking. Sarah handed Samuel back to Ellie. It's good you're here, real good. But folks are gonna wonder. Let them, Ben said. Ben. I mean it, Sarah. I appreciate the concern, but Ellie's staying as long as she wants. Anyone's got an issue, they know where to find me. Jack and Sarah exchanged looks. All right, Jack said finally. Your business, Ben. They didn't stay long after that, left with promises to check in and offers to help if needed. When they were gone, Ellie sank into the rocking chair. That was uncomfortable. They mean well. I know, but they're worried. About you. About what people will think. Don't care what people think. You should. Ellie looked at him. You live here, Ben. I don't. When I leave, you'll still be here facing whatever talk I leave behind. Then don't leave. The words came out before Ben could stop them. Ellie stared at him. What? I mean... Ben ran a hand through his hair. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying. Samuel needs you. And we could use the help. For as long as you're willing. Ben, I can't just move in with you. That's not people will think. I know what they'll think. Don't care. You should. Why? He moved closer. Why should I care more about gossip than about keeping my son alive? Because gossip turns into something worse. Trust me, I know. Ellie's voice went hard. In Boston after Thomas died, people whispered, said I was a bad mother, said God took him as punishment for something I'd done. Then Robert started drinking, and they said I drove him to it. And when he died, they said I killed him. Ben's jaw clenched. That's horse shit. Maybe, but it stuck. His family believed it. The church believed it. And when I tried to defend myself, it just made it worse. She looked down at Samuel. I won't do that to you, to him. Ellie. I'll stay a few more days, until Samuel's stronger. Then I'll move on, find work somewhere else. Where? I don't know. Another town? Maybe teach if anyone will hire me. And if they won't? She didn't answer. Ben crouched in front of her. Look at me. She did. Her eyes were wet. I don't give a damn what people say, Ben said quietly. All I care about is that Samuel's alive because of you. Everything else is just noise. It won't stay noise, Ben. It'll get louder and meaner. And eventually nothing. You're staying, as long as you want. That's the end of it. Ellie searched his face. You're stubborn. Been told that before? It's not a compliment. Don't care. She almost smiled. You really don't, do you? No, ma'am. Stop calling me ma'am. I'm younger than you. Yes, ma'am. This time she did smile. Small but real. Samuel fussed. Ellie shifted him, and he settled. He'll need to eat again soon. Then feed him. Ben stood. I'll start dinner. You cook? Barely, but I can manage beans and bacon. That'll work. They moved around each other in the small cabin, careful and polite. Ben heated beans. Ellie nursed Samuel. They ate together as the sun set outside, painting the snow gold. It felt like something Ben couldn't name, something fragile and new. That night, after Samuel was asleep and Ellie had taken the bed again, Ben sat in the rocking chair and watched them both. Ellie slept curled on her side, one hand resting on Samuel's cradle. Even in sleep, she looked ready to wake at the slightest sound. Ben thought about what she'd said. About gossip. About leaving. She was right to worry. He knew that. Copper Ridge was small and hungry for stories. A widower and a strange woman. That was a story people would feast on. But Ben couldn't make himself care. Samuel was alive. Fed. Safe. That was all that mattered. Everything else, the talk, the judgment, the whispers, none of it could touch that truth. So let them talk. Ben leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes, and for the first time since Margaret died, he slept through the night. When he woke, gray dawn light filtered through the windows. Samuel was awake, making soft sounds. Ellie stood at the wash basin, hair loose, splashing water on her face. Morning, Ben said, voice rough. She turned. Morning. You actually slept. Guess I did. Good. She dried her face on a towel. I'll feed him, then make breakfast. I can... Ben, let me help. He nodded, rose from the chair, stretched. His back didn't ache quite so much this morning. Ellie picked up Samuel, settled into the rocking chair. Ben turned away, started the coffee. Ben. Ellie's voice was quiet. Yeah. Thank you for letting me stay. Should be me thanking you. We can both be thankful then. Ben smiled into the coffee pot. Deal. Outside, the sun broke over the mountains. The snow glittered. The world looked clean and bright. And inside the cabin, a fragile new routine took shape, one built on necessity. Yes, but also on something deeper. Hope. By the end of the first week, a routine had settled over the cabin like snow on a roof. Quiet, inevitable, covering everything that had been there before. Ben woke before dawn, fed the stove, started coffee. Ellie rose when Samuel fussed, nursed him in the gray light, while Ben fried eggs or heated leftover beans. They ate together, without much talk. Then Ben left for the shop while Ellie stayed with the baby. He came home at noon to check on them. Stayed long enough to eat whatever Ellie had managed to cook from the dwindling supplies. Then back to the forge until sunset. Evenings were quieter. Samuel would eat again, then sleep in his cradle, while Ben and Ellie sat by the stove. Sometimes they talked. More often they didn't. Just existed in the same space two broken people held together by a baby's needs. It worked. That was all Ben cared about. But on Sunday morning, everything shifted. Ben was at the stove when Ellie came out of the bedroom already dressed. She'd put on one of Sarah's dresses, dark blue calico, simple but clean. Her hair was braided and pinned up. "You look nice," Ben said before he could stop himself. Ellie's cheeks colored. "Thank you. I thought I'd go to church." Ben's hand stilled on the coffee pot. "Church. It's Sunday." "I know what day it is." "Then you know people will expect to see me. If I'm staying in town, I should—" She stopped. "I should show my face. Be respectable." Ben poured coffee with more force than necessary. "You don't owe these people anything." "Maybe not. But I owe you. And hiding in this cabin will only make the talk worse. Let it get worse." "Ben." Ellie crossed to him. "I need to do this. For me. I haven't been to church since Thomas died. Haven't prayed. Haven't—" Her voice caught. "I need to try." Ben looked at her. Really looked. Saw the determination in her eyes, the fear beneath it. "All right," he said. "Then I'm going with you." "You don't have to." "I'm going." Ellie opened her mouth, closed it. "You haven't been since Margaret's funeral." "I know." "Ben." "I said I'm going." He set the coffee pot down. "Samuel too. We go as a family, or we don't go at all." The word hung between them. Family. Ellie's eyes went bright. "All right, we'll go together." The church sat at the edge of town, white-clapboard with a modest steeple. Ben hadn't looked at it directly in 3 weeks. Hadn't been able to. Now he walked toward it with Samuel in his arms and Ellie at his side, and every step felt like walking through mud. People were already gathering outside. Families in their Sunday best, talking in clusters. The conversations died when Ben appeared. Every head turned. Ben kept walking. Felt Ellie stiffen beside him, but she didn't slow. "Morning, Ben," someone called. "Miller, the store owner." "Morning. That the woman staying with you?" Ben stopped. Turned. Miller stood with his wife and 3 kids, all of them staring. "This is Ellie Thornton," Ben said evenly. "She's helping with Samuel." "So we heard." Mrs. Miller's voice was cool. "Must be quite the help." "She is." "How long's she planning to stay?" "Long as she wants." "Surely she's got family somewhere. People wondering where she's gone." "Don't see how that's your concern." Ben shifted Samuel in his arms. "Excuse us." He moved past them. Ellie followed head high, but Ben saw her hands trembling. Inside the church was packed, every pew filled. Reverend Grant stood at the front arranging his notes. He looked up as Ben entered, and something like relief crossed his face. "Ben, good to see you." "Reverend. And this must be Miss Thornton. We've heard about your kindness to young Samuel." "Mrs. Thornton," Ellie corrected quietly. "I'm widowed." "Of course. My condolences." Grant gestured to an empty space near the back. "Please sit." They took the pew. People whispered. Ben heard his name. Heard Ellie's. Heard words like shameful and improper and scandal. Ellie sat rigid beside him, staring straight ahead. Samuel fussed. She reached for him without thinking, and Ben passed the baby over. More whispers. Louder now. "Look at that. Acting like she's his mother." Poor Margaret, rolling in her grave. Somebody should say something. Ben's jaw clenched. Ellie's face had gone pale, but she kept her eyes forward, rocking Samuel gently. Reverend Grant cleared his throat. "Let us begin." The service started. Hymns. Ben didn't sing. Prayers he didn't say. He just sat there, anger simmering in his chest, while people stared and whispered. Grant's sermon was about compassion, about charity to strangers. His eyes kept drifting to Ben and Ellie. "The Bible tells us to welcome the stranger," Grant said, "to give comfort to the grieving, to show mercy to those in need. Yet how often do we fail? How often do we judge instead of love?" A few people shifted uncomfortably. Most didn't seem to hear. When Samuel started crying, Ellie stood immediately. "I'll take him outside." "You don't have to," Ben started. "It's fine." She was already moving, hurrying down the aisle with Samuel against her shoulder. Ben watched her go. Watched every eye follow her. Watched Ruth McAllister lean to her neighbor and whisper something that made them both smirk. Something in Ben snapped. He stood. "Ben," Grant said. Ben didn't answer. Just walked out, boots loud on the wooden floor. Outside, Ellie stood by the church steps trying to calm Samuel. Tears streaked her face. "Hey." Ben touched her arm. "You all right?" "I shouldn't have come. I made it worse." "You didn't do anything wrong." "They hate me. You heard them." "They don't know you." "They don't want to." She looked at him, eyes red. "This is exactly what I was afraid of, Ben. They'll make your life hell because of me." "I don't care." "You should." Samuel wailed louder. Ellie tried to soothe him, but her hands shook too badly. "Give him here." Ben took the baby, and Samuel quieted slightly, turning his face into Ben's chest. "See, he just needed his papa." "He needed to eat," Ellie said. "But I can't not here, not with everyone watching." "Then we'll go home." "The service isn't over." "Don't care." Ben started walking. "Come on." Ellie hesitated. Then she followed. They made it halfway down the street before the voices started behind them. "Walking out of church, the nerve." And her crying like she's the victim. Shameless, both of them. Ben didn't turn around, just kept walking, Samuel in his arms, Ellie beside him. Back at the cabin, Ellie fed Samuel in silence. Her tears had stopped, but her face was rigid, closed off. Ben paced. The anger wouldn't settle, kept churning in his gut. "I'm leaving," Ellie said suddenly. Ben stopped. "What?" "Tomorrow. I'll pack tonight. Leave first thing." "The hell you will." "Ben." "No." He crossed to her. "You're not leaving because some busybodies can't mind their own damn business." "It's not just busybodies, it's the whole town. They'll make your life impossible. Let them try." "Ben, please." Ellie's voice broke. "I can't watch you lose everything because of me. Your reputation, your business, your place here. My place here doesn't mean shit if my son starves." Samuel's stronger now. He might take a bottle. Might. And if he doesn't? What then? Ben crouched in front of her. "You walk away, and I'm right back where I started. Except worse, because now I'll know what it's like to have help. To not be drowning." "You're not drowning anymore. Because you're here." He looked at Samuel, content in her arms. "He needs you, Ellie. I need you." Her breath caught. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true." "Because it makes this harder. Because I—" She stopped, shook her head. "I can't be what you need, Ben. I'm too broken." "Join the club." "That's not funny." "Not trying to be." He stood, ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I ain't asking you to be Margaret. Ain't asking you to be anything but what you are. Someone who cares about Samuel. Someone who's keeping him alive. And when that's not enough anymore, when you want more than I can give, then we'll figure it out. Together." Ellie looked at him for a long moment. "You're asking me to stay? Really stay?" "Yeah." "Even though it'll make things harder for you?" "Yeah." "Even though people will talk?" "I don't give a damn what people say." Ben's voice went hard. All I care about is that baby in your arms. Everything else is just noise. Samuel made a sleepy sound stretching against Ellie's chest. She looked down at him, and something in her face softened. He's so small, she whispered. So helpless, like Thomas was. This ain't Thomas. I know. But sometimes when I hold him I forget. And it feels like I'm being given a second chance. Maybe you are. Or maybe I'm running from grief instead of facing it. Maybe grief's worth running from. Ellie almost smiled. You always this stubborn. Margaret used to say I was part mule. She wasn't wrong. They fell quiet. Samuel's breathing evened out sleep, taking him. I'll stay, Ellie said finally. But only if you're sure. I'm sure. Even if the whole town turns against you. Even then. She nodded slowly. All right. But Ben, if it gets too hard, if people make trouble, then we'll deal with it. Together. That word again. Together. Ellie held it like something fragile, something she was afraid to trust. But she didn't argue. Monday morning brought trouble in the form of Ruth McAllister. Ben was at the forge when she appeared in his doorway, mouth pressed in a tight line. Mrs. McAllister, Ben said, not bothering with warmth. Something I can do for you. I'm here on behalf of the church women's circle. That's so. We're concerned, Mr. Carter, about the situation in your home. Ben set his hammer down carefully. What situation would that be? You know perfectly well. That woman, Mrs. Thornton. What about her? Ruth stepped inside, drawing herself up. It's improper. A single woman living under your roof. The two of you unchaperoned. And her... Ruth's face pinched. Her nursing your child. It's indecent. She's keeping my son alive. There are other ways. You could find a wet nurse. Someone respectable. Someone with references. I did find a wet nurse. Her name's Ellie. Mrs. Thornton is a stranger. We know nothing about her, where she's from, what she's running from. She's from Boston, widowed, lost her baby. That's all you need to know. Is it? Ruth's eyes glittered. Because people are saying she just appeared. No warning, no explanation. And now she's living in your house like a wife. She's not living here like a wife. She's living here like help. Help that shares your home, your table, your... Careful, Mrs. McAllister. Ruth's mouth snapped shut. Then, the church women believe you should find other arrangements, for the sake of propriety. The church women can mind their own business. This is our business. We have a duty to uphold Christian values in this community. Christian values. Ben's voice went cold. Where were those Christian values 3 weeks ago when I was riding door to door begging for help? When my son was starving and nobody could be bothered? That's hardly fair. Ellie showed up when no one else would. She saved Samuel's life. And now you want me to send her away because it makes you uncomfortable. Ben stepped closer. Not happening. Mr. Carter, you got anything else to say? Ruth's face flushed. The women's circle will not stand for this. We'll speak to Reverend Grant. We'll do whatever you want. Doesn't change anything. Ben picked up his hammer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got work to do. Ruth left in a huff, skirts swishing. Ben's hands shook as he went back to work. Anger and fear mixed in his chest. He'd meant what he said to Ruth, but he also knew how towns like this worked. Once the church women decided something was improper, they didn't let it go. He worked through lunch too agitated to eat, only headed home when the light started failing. Ellie met him at the door, face pale. Ruth McAllister came by. Ben's stomach dropped. What did she say? That I should leave. That my presence here is causing scandal. Ellie's voice was steady, but her eyes were frightened. She said if I don't go voluntarily, the women's circle will make sure I'm not welcome anywhere in town. She threatened you. Not in so many words, but yes. Ben swore. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. I didn't know what else to say. You tell her to go to hell. That's what you say. Ben. I already had this conversation with her this morning. Told her the same thing I'm telling you. You're staying. But if they, what? Run us out of town, let them try. He crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. Listen to me. I've lived in Copper Ridge my whole life. Built my business here, married here, buried my wife here. I got roots. They can't touch that. They can make your life miserable. Already done that. Doesn't stick. He let her go, moved to check on Samuel. The baby slept peacefully in his cradle, oblivious. You saved my son. Far as I'm concerned, that makes you family. And I protect my family. Ellie's eyes filled. You can't just decide we're family. Why not? Because family is blood, history. It's who you choose to stand with when everything goes to hell. Ben looked at her. I'm choosing you. Ben, you want to leave, that's your choice. But don't leave because Ruth McAllister says so. Don't give them that power. Ellie stared at him. Then slowly she nodded. All right, I'll stay. Good. That night, after Samuel was fed and sleeping, Ellie sat by the stove and cried. Not loud, just silent tears that rolled down her cheeks while she stared into the flames. Ben sat in the rocking chair watching her. You all right? No. She wiped her face. I'm terrified. Of what? Of staying. Of leaving. Of... Her voice broke. Of caring too much. About Samuel. About all of it. This cabin, the routine, you. She looked at him. I didn't want this, Ben. I came here to disappear, to stop feeling. And now you're feeling again. And it hurts. She pressed a hand to her chest. God, it hurts. Ben understood that. Feeling was dangerous. Caring meant you could lose again. And losing hurt worse than dying. I keep waiting for it to end, Ellie whispered. For Samuel to reject me. For you to realize you don't need me anymore. For God to take this away like he took everything else. God doesn't work like that. You don't know that. No, but I know you're here. Samuel's alive. That's real. Ben leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe it'll end tomorrow. Maybe it won't. But worrying about it won't change anything. So what do? You wake up tomorrow. You feed Samuel. You do the next thing. And the thing after that. Same as the rest of us. Ellie looked at him for a long time. Then she smiled, small and sad and real. You make it sound simple. It is simple, just ain't easy. No, it's not. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, Samuel breathed deep and peaceful. Ben. Ellie's voice was quiet. Yeah. Thank you for fighting for me. Ain't fighting for you. Fighting for us. Us. Another word that felt too big, too meaningful. But Ellie didn't argue, just nodded and went back to watching the fire. And Ben watched her and thought about roots, about what it meant to choose someone, to say this person matters and mean it. He'd done it once with Margaret, built a life around her, lost everything when she died. He wasn't building a life around Ellie. Wasn't in love with her. Didn't even know if he could love anyone again. But he could choose her. Could stand beside her when the town turned cruel. Could say she mattered. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Tuesday brought a surprise visitor. Ben was splitting wood behind the cabin when a horse and wagon pulled up. He straightened axe in hand and watched Thomas Fletcher climb down. Fletcher was a big man, broad-shouldered and thick around the middle. He wore a fine wool coat and a hat that cost more than Ben made in a month. His face was flushed from the cold. Carter. Fletcher said, nodding. Fletcher. Ben didn't put the axe down. Something I can do for you. Heard you had some trouble at church Sunday. News travels fast. Always does. Fletcher moved closer. Also heard you got a woman staying with you. Nursing your boy. That's right. Mind if I ask why you're telling Ruth McAllister to shove it instead of finding a proper arrangement? Because there ain't a proper arrangement. Ellie's helping. That's all that matters. Fletcher was quiet for a moment. You remember the loan your brother took before he ran off? Ben's grip tightened on the axe. What about it? It's coming due. End of the month. I know. I'm working on it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're spending your time defending a woman's honor instead of working your forge. I'm doing both. Not well enough. Fletcher pulled a paper from his coat pocket. This is the loan agreement. $300, due in full by December 1st. I'll have it. Will you? Fletcher unfolded the paper. Because I've got numbers here that say otherwise. You've been missing deliveries, turning away customers. Your work's been sloppy. My wife died. My son near died. I've been a little busy. I understand that, and I'm sympathetic truly, but business is business. Fletcher refolded the paper. If you can't pay, I'll have to take collateral. The shop. Maybe this land. Ben's stomach went cold. The hell you will. Read the contract, Carter. It's all legal. You ain't taking my shop. Then pay the loan. Fletcher turned to leave, stopped. And Carter, that woman, Mrs. Thornton, she's making things harder for you. People don't trust her, don't trust you for keeping her. That affects business. My business is fine. For now. But how long before folks start taking their work elsewhere, to a blacksmith whose personal life isn't a scandal? Fletcher climbed back onto his wagon. Think about it. For your son's sake. He drove off, leaving Ben standing in the cold with fury and fear churning in his gut. Inside, Ellie had heard everything. She stood by the window, Samuel in her arms, face pale. How much do you owe him? She asked. $300. Do you have it? Most of it, not all. How much are you short? Ellie. How much? Ben set the axe down. 150, maybe 200. And you've got 2 weeks. Yeah. Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then, I have money. Not much, but some. Savings from teaching in Boston. I ain't taking your money. Why not? Because it's yours. And this is Samuel's home. Our home. She looked at him. Let me help Ben. No. Why are you so stubborn? Because I ain't taking money from you to solve a problem my brother caused. The words came out louder than he meant. Samuel flinched, whimpered. Ellie rocked him gently. This isn't about your brother. It's about us. About keeping this place. It's about pride. Pride doesn't feed babies or keep roofs over heads. She moved closer. Ben, please. Let me do this. You've already done enough. Clearly not if you're about to lose everything. Ben turned away. Couldn't look at her. The shame was too thick. How much do you have? Ellie asked quietly. $73, maybe $80 if I sell some tools. And I have 42. That's not enough. It's close. Close doesn't pay debts. Ben sat heavily on the porch step, put his head in his hands. Damn it! Ellie sat beside him. Samuel made soft sounds between them. We'll figure something out, she said. Like what? I don't know yet, but we will. Ben wanted to believe her. Wanted to think they could fight this together, beat Fletcher, keep the shop. But he'd seen how this ended. He'd watched his father lose their family farm to debt. Watched his brother run rather than face what he owed. Ben had sworn he'd be different, he'd be responsible, pay his debts, keep his land. And now he was failing anyway. Maybe you should leave, he said quietly. Ellie went still. What? Fletcher's right. You being here makes things worse. People don't trust me. Won't bring their business. He looked at her. If you left, maybe... No. Her voice was hard. Don't you dare. Ellie, don't you dare blame me for this. Fletcher's a snake. He's looking for an excuse to take your shop. Me being here isn't the reason. It's just convenient. But if people trusted me more, they'd find another reason not to. That's what people like Ruth McAllister do. They need someone to judge, someone to look down on. She shifted Samuel to her shoulder. I'm not leaving Ben. Not because Fletcher says so. Not because you're scared. I ain't scared. You're terrified. So am I. But running won't fix this. Ben looked at his hands. Calloused, scarred from years at the forge. Hands that built things, fixed things. Hands that couldn't fix this. I don't know what to do, he admitted. Then we'll figure it out. Together. She touched his arm. I meant what I said. This is our home now, all three of us, and we don't give it up without a fight. Ben nodded, couldn't speak past the tightness in his throat. Ellie stood. Come inside, it's cold. He followed her into the cabin, into the warmth, into the fragile life they'd built from broken pieces. And for the first time since Margaret died, Ben thought maybe he wasn't alone anymore. Maybe he didn't have to be. The next morning, Ben woke to voices outside the cabin. He sat up fast, heart pounding. Gray dawn light filtered through the window. Beside him in the bed he'd finally given up the chair 2 nights ago, Ellie stirred. What is it? She whispered. Don't know. Stay here. Ben pulled on his boots and grabbed the rifle from above the door, cracked it open. Jack Morrison stood on the porch with 4 other men. All of them held tools, shovels, axes, hammers. Jack. Ben lowered the rifle. What's going on? Heard you got trouble with Fletcher. Jack shifted his weight. Heard he's coming for your shop. News really does travel. It's a small town, Ben. People talk. Jack gestured to the men behind him. This is Marcus from the mine, Pete and his boy from the Henderson farm. And you know old Wyatt. The men nodded. Wyatt, who had to be 70 if he was a day, spat tobacco juice into the snow. What are you doing here? Ben asked. We come to help. Jack stepped forward. You fixed my wagon axle last spring, didn't charge me, said I could pay when I had it. That was nothing. Wasn't nothing to me. My whole livelihood's on that wagon. Jack looked at the others. Marcus, you remember when your horse threw a shoe, who stayed late to fix it so you could make your shift? You did, Marcus said, looking at Ben. And Pete, Jack continued. When your plow broke 2 days before planting, who fixed it for the price of a dozen eggs? Pete nodded. You did, Ben. And me, Wyatt said, voice like gravel. You shod my mule for free after my Betsy died. Said no man should pay in grief. Ben's throat went tight. Fellas, I appreciated this, but nothing. Jack pulled a leather pouch from his coat. Coins jingled inside. We took up a collection. Everybody you've ever helped. Some folks who just think Ruth McAllister's a busybody. Even Reverend Grant pitched in. He handed the pouch to Ben. It was heavy. Ben opened it. His hands shook. Jack, this is how much is here. $160. Near about. Ben stared at the coins, at the men standing in the cold dawn, at their faces, rough-weathered honest. I can't take this. Sure you can. Jack clapped his shoulder. You earned it, every cent. All those times you helped folks when they couldn't pay you were making a deposit. Now we're paying you back. But some of these people, they barely got enough to feed their own families. And you helped them anyway. That's the point. Marcus stepped forward. My wife said to tell you she don't care what Ruth McAllister says. You're a good man, Ben Carter. And that woman in there, she's keeping your boy alive. That matters more than gossip. The other men murmured agreement. Ben's eyes burned. He blinked hard. I don't know what to say. Don't say nothing. Just take the money. Pay Fletcher. Keep your shop. Jack's voice went hard. And tell him if he's got a problem with it, he can take it up with all of us. Behind Ben, the cabin door opened. Ellie stood there in her borrowed dress, Samuel in her arms. Her eyes were wet. Thank you, she said, voice barely above a whisper. All of you. Thank you. The men tipped their hats. Ma'am, Wyatt said, you done good by this family. That's all that matters. They left as the sun broke over the mountains. Ben stood holding the pouch, unable to move. Ellie touched his arm. Ben. He turned to her. They came. They all came. I know. I thought the whole town turned against us. Not the whole town, just the loudest parts. She smiled. The good people were just quieter. Ben looked at the pouch again, added it to his own savings in his mind. This might be enough, with what I got with your money. No. Ellie shifted Samuel to her other shoulder. Keep my money. Use theirs. They gave it freely. That's different. But, Ben, let people help you. Please. You've spent so long being strong for everyone else. Let them be strong for you. He wanted to argue, wanted to say he didn't need help, could handle it himself. But the truth was sitting heavy in his hands. He did need help, had needed it all along. All right, he said quietly. All right. That afternoon, Ben rode into town with $160 in his pocket and steel in his spine. Fletcher's office sat above the bank, all dark wood and brass fixtures. Ben climbed the stairs, knocked once, walked in without waiting. Fletcher looked up from his desk. Carter, I wasn't expecting you. Got your payment. Ben dropped the pouch on the desk. Coins spilled across the polished surface. Fletcher stared. Where'd you get this? Does it matter? It's legal tender. I suppose it doesn't. Fletcher began counting. His fingers moved quick, practiced. After a minute, he looked up. This is 160. You're still short. I know. Give me 3 days. I'll have the rest. The agreement says. I know what the damn agreement says. I'm asking for 3 days. Fletcher leaned back in his chair. And if you don't have it in 3 days, then you can take whatever you want, but I will have it. Fletcher studied him. This about that woman, Mrs. Thornton. This about me keeping my word. Fletcher drummed his fingers on the desk. People are saying she's a bad influence, that you're distracted. People say a lot of things. Most of it's horse shit. Maybe, but appearances matter in business, Carter. You know that. What I know is I do good work. Always have. That's all that should matter. Fletcher was quiet for a long moment. Then, 3 days, but not a minute more. That's all I need. Ben left before Fletcher could change his mind. His hands shook as he untied his horse. Relief and fear mixed in his chest. 3 days. He had 3 days to come up with another $140. It might as well have been 1,000. Back at the cabin, Ellie was teaching Samuel to reach for a wooden rattle Ben had carved. The baby's hand waved uncoordinated, missing by miles, but he was trying. Look at him, Ellie said, smiling. He's so determined. Gets that from his mama. The words slipped out before Ben could stop them. Ellie's smile faltered. Margaret was determined. Stubborn as hell. Ben sat at the table. Once she set her mind to something, nothing could change it. What was she like, really? Ben was quiet. He'd avoided talking about Margaret in detail. Felt like betrayal somehow sitting here with another woman speaking her name. But Ellie's eyes held only kindness, no jealousy, no judgment. She was good, Ben said finally. Good in a way I never was. Saw the best in people even when they didn't deserve it. She'd give her last dollar to someone who needed it, then figure out how to get by without. She sounds wonderful. She was. Ben's chest ached. Samuel got her eyes, her smile. I see her in him every day. That must hurt. Yeah, but it helps too, knowing she's still here in a way. Ellie nodded, looked down at Samuel. Thomas had Robert's nose, his temper too, would scream himself red when he was hungry. Her voice went soft. I used to get so frustrated. Wish he'd just calm down, and now I'd give anything to hear him scream one more time. You're good with Samuel. I'm terrified of Samuel. Every time I pick him up, I'm afraid I'll break him, or lose him, or... She stopped. But I keep doing it anyway, because he needs me. We need you. Ellie looked at him. Ben. I know, you don't want to hear it, but it's true. He stood moved to the window. Fletcher gave me 3 days to get the rest of the money. How much? 140. I have 42. I know, but that still leaves us 100 short. What can we sell? Everything I got ain't worth that much. Tools maybe, but I need those to work. Horse is worth something, but then how do I get to jobs? Ben pressed his forehead to the cold glass. I'm out of options, Ellie. She was quiet. Samuel fussed. She stood, began rocking him, humming under her breath. What if I worked? She said. Ben turned. What? What if I found work teaching maybe? Or, 3 days ain't enough time to find teaching work. Then something else. Cleaning, mending, anything. Ellie, nobody in this town's gonna hire you. Ruth McAllister made sure of that. Then I'll go to another town. And leave Samuel? No, She stopped, closed her eyes. You're right. There's no time. Ben crossed to her. We'll figure something out. How? He didn't have an answer. That night, after Samuel was asleep and Ellie had gone to bed, Ben sat at the table with a pencil and paper. Wrote down everything he owned, everything he could possibly sell. The numbers didn't add up. No matter how he calculated, he came up short. He thought about his brother, about the debt that had started all this. Tommy had run off to California chasing gold or glory or whatever the hell made men abandon their families. Left Ben holding the bag. Ben had paid it off bit by bit, month by month. Was so close to being clear. And now this. He wanted to be angry. Wanted to blame Tommy. But the truth was, he was just tired. Tired of struggling. Tired of losing. Tired of watching everything he built slip through his fingers. Ben! He looked up. Ellie stood in the doorway wrapped in a blanket. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. Thought you were asleep, he said. Can't sleep. She moved closer, looked at the paper covered in numbers. Still trying to solve it. Yeah. Any luck? No. She sat beside him. Tell me about the shop. What would happen if Fletcher took it? I'd lose my livelihood. Have to find work somewhere else. Maybe another town. Ben's voice went flat. Samuel would be uprooted. I don't know what you'd do. I'd come with you. Ben's head snapped up. What? If you left, I'd come with you. Both of us. She pulled the blanket tighter. Unless you don't want that. Ellie. I know it's not proper. I know people would talk even more. But Samuel needs me, and you... She met his eyes. I think you need me too. Ben couldn't speak. His throat had closed up completely. I'm not Margaret, Ellie continued. I'll never be her, but I can be something. Someone who helps. Someone who stays. You'd do that. Leave everything, follow me to God knows where. I already left everything, Ben. When I walked away from Boston, I had nothing. And then I found you. Found Samuel. Found... She stopped. Found a reason to keep going. That's not love talking. That's grief. Maybe. Or maybe it's both. She touched his hand. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm just asking you to let me stay. Whatever that looks like. Wherever it is. Ben stared at their hands, his rough and scarred, hers small and pale. Two broken people reaching for something neither could name. "All right," he said quietly. "If we have to leave you, come too. Promise. Promise." Ellie smiled, squeezed his hand. "Then we'll figure the rest out together." The next day, Ben worked the forge like a man possessed. Every order he'd been putting off, every repair he'd delayed, he threw himself into it with desperate energy. Wyatt brought his mule back for new shoes. "Heard you're in a bind. What can I do?" "You already helped. The collection." That was then. This is now. Put me to work. So Ben did. Had Wyatt work the bellows while Ben hammered. By noon, they'd finished 3 jobs that should have taken a full day. Word spread. By afternoon, more men showed up. Marcus brought iron stock from the mine. "Payment for all them tools you fixed." Pete delivered eggs and bacon. "For your trouble." Even Miller from the store stopped by with flour and coffee. "My wife reminded me you shot our horses for free last winter. This squares it." Ben tried to refuse, tried to say they didn't owe him anything, but they kept coming, kept bringing what they could. By sunset, Ben had finished 8 jobs, collected $7 in cash, and had enough food to last a month. It still wasn't enough money, but it was something. He came home to find Ellie darning socks by lamplight. Samuel slept in his cradle, cheeks pink, belly full. "How'd it go?" Ellie asked. "Good, better than expected." Ben hung his coat. "Made $7, got some food." "That's wonderful." "Still short by a lot." Ellie set down her mending. "Ben, I've been thinking, what if we talk to Reverend Grant? Explain the situation. Maybe he could talk to Fletcher, ask for more time." "Fletcher don't care about church talk." "Maybe not, but it's worth trying." Ben wanted to argue, but he was out of ideas. "All right, we'll go tomorrow." Together. Yeah, together. Reverend Grant's house sat behind the church, small and neat. Ben knocked the next morning with Ellie beside him and Samuel in her arms. Grant opened the door, surprise crossing his face. "Ben, Mrs. Thornton, come in, please." They entered the modest parlor. Grant's wife appeared with tea, smiled warmly at them, disappeared again. "What can I do for you?" Grant asked. Ben explained about the loan, about Fletcher's ultimatum, about having 2 days left and still being short. Grant listened, fingers steepled, face grave. "I'm sorry to hear this," he said when Ben finished. "Truly, but I'm not sure what I can do. Fletcher's not a religious man. My opinion carries no weight with him. But maybe," Ellie started. "Mrs. Thornton, I understand your concern. But Fletcher runs his business by numbers, not by mercy. He won't extend grace just because I ask." "Then what do we do?" Ben's voice came out harder than he meant. Grant was quiet for a moment. "Have you considered asking the congregation another collection?" "Already did that. Can't ask again." "Then I'm afraid you may need to accept that some battles can't be won." Grant's voice was gentle. "It's not giving up to acknowledge when circumstances are beyond your control." "So that's it." Ben stood. "I just lose everything." "I didn't say that. You said circumstances are beyond my control. That's the same as saying give up." Ben moved to the door. "Thanks for your time, Reverend." "Ben, please." But Ben was already leaving Ellie, hurrying after him. Outside, the cold air hit like a slap. Ben stood on the church steps, hands clenched into fists. "He's wrong," Ellie said quietly. "We're not out of options yet." "Ain't we? We got no money, no time, and no way to get either. We've still got 2 days. 2 days to work a miracle." Ben laughed bitter. "And I'm fresh out of those." Ellie shifted Samuel to her other shoulder. The baby grabbed a fistful of her hair, tugged. She didn't seem to notice. "My mother used to say the darkest hour is just before dawn," she said. "Your mother ever lose everything?" "Actually, yes. When I was 8, our house burned. We lost everything except the clothes we wore. My father wanted to give up, move west, start over. But my mother said no. Said we'd rebuild. Right there. Same spot. Did you? Yes. Took 3 years, but we did. Ellie looked at him. Sometimes stubbornness is all you've got. And sometimes that's enough. Ben wanted to believe her. Wanted to think they could fight this win somehow. But he'd seen too many men lose to debt. Seen too many families broken by circumstance. He was just another one. Nothing special? They walked home in silence. Ben's mind churned, searching for answers that wouldn't come. At the cabin, Jack was waiting with his wagon. Jack, Ben approached cautiously. What are you doing here? Got an idea. Might be crazy, but hear me out. Jack climbed down. What if we held an auction? Auction of what? Your work, tools you've made, horseshoes, hinges, whatever you got lying around that you don't need. People'd pay for it. Your work's good. Nobody's got spare money for horseshoes they don't need. You'd be surprised. Plus, it ain't about need. It's about helping. Jack gestured to the wagon. I'll haul whatever you want to sell into town. We'll set up in front of the store. Make it an event. Ben shook his head. Jack, I appreciate it, but nothing. You got a better idea. Ben didn't. Then let's try it. Jack's voice went firm. What have you got to lose? Everything Ben wanted to say. His pride, his dignity, whatever respect he had left. But Ellie touched his arm. It's worth trying. Ben looked at her. At Samuel in her arms. At the cabin behind them, their home. All right, he said. Let's do it. They spent the rest of the day gathering everything Ben had made but didn't need. Extra horseshoes, decorative hinges, a fireplace poker he'd forged for practice, even an old anvil he didn't use anymore. Jack loaded it all into his wagon. I'll spread the word. Tell folks to come by the store tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. What do I owe you for this? Ben asked. Nothing. You already paid me by being a decent man. Jack climbed onto the wagon seat. See you tomorrow, Ben. That night, Ben couldn't sleep. He lay in bed beside Ellie, listening to her breathe, listening to Samuel's soft sounds from the cradle. You awake? Ellie whispered. Yeah. Nervous? Terrified. She rolled toward him. In the darkness, he could barely see her face. Whatever happens tomorrow will be all right. How do you know? Because we've already survived the worst. Thomas dying, Margaret dying, our whole lives falling apart. We survived that. This is just money. Just money that keeps a roof over our heads. Then we'll find another roof. We'll figure it out. Her hand found his in the dark. Together. There was that word again. Together. Ben held on to it like a lifeline. Held on to her hand. Held on to the fragile hope that maybe somehow they'd make it through. Ellie, he said quietly. Yeah. Thank you. For staying. For all of it. Thank you for letting me. They lay there in the darkness, hands clasped, two broken people who'd somehow found each other in the ruins of their old lives. And Ben thought maybe that was its own kind of miracle, the only kind that mattered. Morning came cold and clear. Ben stood in front of Miller's General Store at 9:30, watching Jack arrange his work on a makeshift table. Horseshoes gleamed in the winter sun. The old anvil sat heavy on one end. Everything he'd made with his own hands laid out for strangers to judge and buy. Looks good, Jack said, stepping back. Real good. Ben's stomach churned. Feels like begging. It ain't begging. It's commerce. Jack clapped his shoulder. Have faith, Ben. Faith. Ben had lost most of his the day Margaret died. What little remained had been hanging by a thread ever since. Ellie approached from the cabin, Samuel bundled against her chest. She'd put on Sarah's best dress, pinned her hair up neat. Looked almost respectable. Any customers yet? She asked. Too early. Ben checked his pocket watch. We got time. They waited. Minutes crawled. Ben's hands wouldn't stay still. He crossed his arms, uncrossed them, shoved them in his pockets. At 10 o'clock, the first person arrived. Mrs. Henderson from the farm carrying a basket. Morning, Ben. Mrs. Thornton. She approached the table, studied the horseshoes. These are good work. Thank you, ma'am. How much for 4 tea? $1 each. Mrs. Henderson counted out coins from her basket. I'll take 6. My boys are hard on equipment. $6. Ben took the money with shaking hands. More people came. Wyatt bought the fireplace poker. Been needing one of these. Marcus took half the horseshoes. Pete's wife bought the decorative hinges for her new pantry door. By 11, Ben had made $23. By noon, 38. People kept coming. Some bought things. Others just pressed coins into Ben's hand. For your trouble. Consider it payment for past work. My sister in Red Creek heard what you're doing. Sent this. Ben tried to refuse the charity. Tried to say he was selling goods, not asking for handouts, but they wouldn't listen. Let people help Ben, Ellie whispered. Please. So he did. Took the money, thanked them. Felt his throat close up with every coin. Ruth McAllister appeared at 1 o'clock, face pinched tight. She looked at the table, at the dwindling goods, at the people clustered around. Shameful, she muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. A man reduced to selling his possessions in the street. A man keeping his family fed, Sarah Morrison shot back. She'd arrived an hour ago, had been directing traffic, keeping people organized. That ain't shameful. That's brave. Ruth's mouth puckered. And that woman. Still here, I see. Still causing scandal. The only scandal here is you, Ruth. Sarah stepped forward. You and your women's circle, acting like judgment is the same as righteousness. Well, it ain't, and we're all tired of it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ruth's face flushed. How dare you? How dare you? Sarah continued. Ben Carter lost his wife, nearly lost his son, and when he found help, you tried to drive it away. What kind of Christian does that? I was protecting. You were protecting your pride, your need to feel superior. Sarah's voice rose. Well, I got news for you, Ruth. The rest of us don't need your protection. We need compassion and kindness, things you seem to have forgotten. Ruth looked around at the crowd, saw no sympathy, no support, just tired faces and hard eyes. She turned on her heel and left back, rigid skirts swishing. The crowd erupted in applause. Sarah turned to Ben, eyes bright. Sorry, been wanting to say that for years. Ben couldn't speak, just nodded. By 2 o'clock, the table was nearly empty. Ben had sold everything but the old anvil. He counted the money, $87. Added to what he already had, plus Ellie's savings, he was still short. $20 short. So damn close. We'll figure something out, Ellie said, but her voice shook. Ben looked at the anvil. It was old, scarred from decades of use. His father had given it to him when Ben opened his shop. This is your legacy, his father had said. Every strike against this iron is a promise to do good work, honest work. Don't forget that. Ben had made that promise, had kept it for 10 years. Now he'd have to sell the very thing that represented it. How much for the anvil? A voice asked. Ben turned. Thomas Fletcher stood at the edge of the crowd, hands in his coat pockets. Ain't for sale, Ben said automatically. Everything here's for sale, that's the point. Fletcher moved closer, studied the anvil. Looks like good iron. How old? 40 years. Maybe more. Worth something then. Fletcher pulled out his wallet. I'll give you $30 for it. Ben's heart stopped. $30. That would put him over. He'd have enough to pay Fletcher's loan, keep his shop, keep his home. All he had to do was sell the last piece of his father he had left. Ben, Ellie touched his arm. It's all right, it's just an anvil. But it wasn't. It was history. Legacy. Everything his father had believed about him. And yet, Ben looked at Ellie, at Samuel sleeping against her chest, at the cabin visible in the distance their home. Deal, he said. Fletcher counted out $30. Ben took it, felt the weight of betrayal and relief mixed together. Pleasure doing business, Fletcher said. Then quieter. You did good today, Carter. Real good. He had the anvil loaded onto a wagon and left. Ben stood holding $117, feeling empty and full at the same time. You did the right thing, Ellie said. Doesn't feel right. It will. Eventually. That evening, Ben rode to Fletcher's office one last time. Walked up those stairs with every dollar he owed clutched in his hand. Fletcher was waiting, paperwork already prepared. Didn't think you'd make it, Fletcher said. I made a promise. So you did. Fletcher counted the money twice, marked the ledger, stamped the loan agreement with a heavy thunk. Paid in full. Congratulations, Carter. The shop's yours free and clear. Ben took the stamped paper, stared at it like it might disappear. For what it's worth, Fletcher said. I'm glad you made it. Would have hated to take that shop. You're a good blacksmith. Town needs you. Then why push so hard? Because business is business. I got a sick wife, medical bills I can barely pay. That loan was money I needed. Fletcher leaned back in his chair. But I'm not a monster. I'm glad you found another way. Ben left without responding. Rode home through the twilight with the stamped paper in his coat and a hollow feeling in his chest. At the cabin, Ellie had dinner waiting. Beans and bacon coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. You did it? She said when he showed her the paper. Yeah. So why do you look like somebody died? Ben set the paper on the table. Sold my father's anvil. Last thing I had of his. Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then, what would he say if he was here? Probably that I was a fool for letting things get this bad. I don't think so. She poured him coffee. I think he'd say you did what you had to. Protected your family. Kept your promises. By selling the promise he made me keep. By honoring what it stood for. Good work. Honest work. That doesn't live in an anvil, Ben. It lives in you. She touched his hand. Your father would be proud. Ben wanted to believe that. Wanted to think his father would understand. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. Either way, it was done. Samuel woke, then fussing for his evening feeding. Ellie picked him up, settled into the rocking chair. Ben watched her unbutton her dress without thinking about it anymore. Watched Samuel latch on, eager and hungry. 3 weeks ago, this scene would have been impossible. Samuel starving. Ben desperate. Both of them alone. Now, they were here. Together. A family built from loss and necessity, and something deeper neither could name. What happens now? Ellie asked quietly. What do you mean? The loan's paid. Samuel's healthy. You don't need me anymore, not the same way. Ben's chest tightened. You planning to leave? I'm asking if you want me to. No. The word came out too fast, too hard. No, I don't want you to leave. Even though people will talk. Let them talk. Even though it's not proper. Ellie? Ben crossed to her, knelt beside the chair. I don't care about proper. I care about you being here. Samuel needs you. He stopped, started again. I need you too. Her eyes filled. As what? As whatever you want to be. Help, friend, family. He took a breath. Wife if you're willing. Ellie stared at him. Ben? I know it's fast. I know you probably think I'm crazy. But these past weeks having you here, it's the first time since Margaret died that I've felt like I could breathe. like maybe I wasn't drowning. That's not love. That's need. Maybe. But maybe need becomes love given time. I don't know. I just know I don't want you to go. He took her free hand. I can't promise I'll love you the way I loved Margaret. Can't promise I won't mess this up. But I can promise I'll try, and I'll protect you, and Samuel, with everything I got. Ellie's tears spilled over. I'm broken, Ben. So broken. So am I. What if we break each other worse? Then we'll put the pieces back together, again and again as many times as it takes. She looked down at Samuel, who'd fallen asleep mid-nursing, milk-drunk and peaceful. He deserves better than two broken people pretending to be whole. He deserves people who love him, people who'll stay. That's all any kid needs. Ellie was quiet for a long time. Samuel breathed soft and even against her. Outside wind rattled the windows. Inside the fire crackled low. All right, she whispered finally. Ask me properly. Ben's heart jumped. What? If you're going to propose, do it right. He almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. Ben stood, moved to the trunk at the foot of the bed, opened it with shaking hands. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was Margaret's wedding ring. He'd put it there after the funeral, couldn't bear to look at it. Now he held it up to the lamplight. Simple gold band worn smooth from years of wear. It was Margaret's, he said, returning to Ellie. I know that might seem... It's perfect. Ellie shifted Samuel to her shoulder, held out her left hand. She'd want someone to wear it, someone who'd love her son. Ben slid the ring on. It fit loose, but not too loose. Eliza Jane Thornton, he said formally. Will you marry me? Be a mother to Samuel and a wife to me. Help me figure out this mess we're in. Yes. She smiled through her tears. Yes, I will. Ben kissed her forehead. Soft. Careful. A promise more than passion. Samuel, stirred between them, made a sleepy sound of protest. They both laughed. Guess he approves, Ben said. Or he's hungry again. Always hungry, this one. Ellie laid Samuel in his cradle. He settled immediately, thumb finding his mouth. When? She asked, turning to Ben. When what? When do we get married? Soon as Reverend Grant can make time. Tomorrow, if he'll do it. That fast? You want to wait? Ellie looked around the cabin. At the life they'd already built without ceremony or permission. No, let's do it tomorrow. They were married 2 days later in Reverend Grant's parlor. No church, no crowd. Just Jack and Sarah as witnesses. Samuel in Ellie's arms, and Grant's wife playing hymns on an out-of-tune piano. Ben wore his only suit brushed clean of forged dust. Ellie wore the blue calico dress, her hair pinned up with a comb Sarah had lent her. Grant read the ceremony short and simple. Do you, Benjamin Carter, take this woman? I do. I haven't finished. Don't need to. Answers yes. Grant smiled. And do you, Eliza Thornton, take this man? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Grant closed his book. You may kiss your bride, Ben. Ben leaned in. Kissed her soft and quick, aware of Samuel between them, of Jack and Sarah watching. When he pulled back, Ellie was smiling. There, she said. Now it's proper. Now it's real. They signed the papers. Jack and Sarah signed as witnesses. Grant's wife hugged them both and cried. Walking home through the snow, Ellie's hand in his, and Samuel against his chest, Ben felt something shift. Not happiness, not yet. The grief was still there, would always be there. But something else had taken root. Something like hope, like possibility. You all right? Ellie asked. Yeah. You? Terrified. Relieved. Happy. Sad. All of it. That about covers it. She laughed. He loved that sound. Wanted to hear it more. At the cabin, they found a surprise waiting. A new anvil sat on the porch, wrapped in canvas, a note pinned to it. Ben unfolded the note, read it aloud. Heard you sold your daddy's anvil to pay your debts. That's a man who keeps his promises. This one's older than dirt, but it'll work. Figured you could use it. No payment necessary. Just keep doing good work. Wyatt? Ellie touched the anvil. He gave you his? Looks like it. That's Ben, you have to pay him back. Already tried with the collection. He wouldn't take it. Ben ran his hand over the scarred iron. Guess some debts get paid forward instead of back. They carried it inside together, set it in the corner where Ben kept his tools. That night, after Samuel was fed and sleeping after the lamps were dimmed and the fire banked, Ben and Ellie lay in bed together as husband and wife. No grand passion, no dramatic declarations, just two people broken and healing, choosing each other in the quiet dark. Ben, Ellie whispered. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For letting me stay, for giving me a reason to keep going. Should be me thanking you. Then we're even. Yeah. Ben found her hand under the blankets, held it. We're even. Spring came slow to Montana, but it came. By March, the snow had melted. Green pushed up through the mud. Samuel was 4 months old now, rolling over, laughing at shadows, grabbing everything he could reach. Ellie's belly had started to swell with new life. She'd told Ben one morning over coffee, voice shaking. I'm pregnant. He'd stared at her. You sure? 3 months, I think. Maybe 4. And are you all right with it? She'd touched her stomach. Terrified. But yes, I think so. Are you? Ben had thought about Margaret, about how she died bringing Samuel into the world, about all the ways this could go wrong. Yeah, he'd said. I'm all right with it. Now in early April, they planted a tree in the yard, a white fir sapling Jack had brought from the mountains. It'll grow tall, Jack said, helping Ben dig the hole. Outlive all of us, probably. That's the idea. Ben lowered the sapling carefully. Ellie handed him the watering bucket. Samuel sat on a blanket nearby, chewing on a wooden block Ben had made him. He watched everything with wide eyes, curious about the world he was growing into. What made you pick a fir? Ellie asked. They're tough, Ben said. Survive harsh winters. Don't give up when things get hard. He looked at her. Seemed fitting. She smiled. It's perfect. They packed dirt around the roots, watered it deep, stood back to admire their work. Think it'll make it? Jack asked. It'll make it, Ben said. Got no choice. Same as the rest of us. Jack laughed, clapped Ben's shoulder. You're a strange man, Ben Carter. Been told that before? After Jack left, Ben sat on the porch with Samuel while Ellie made dinner inside. The baby babbled, reaching for everything, delighted by his own hands. You won't remember any of this, Ben told him. Won't remember how scared I was, how close we came to losing everything. Won't remember your mama Margaret, except through pictures and stories. Samuel grabbed Ben's finger, squeezed. But you'll remember Ellie. She'll be the only mama you know. And that's all right. She loves you fierce. Loves you like you're hers, because you are. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. The baby cooed, smiled his gummy smile. You're gonna have a brother or sister soon, Ben continued. Don't know which yet. Don't care long as they're healthy. And you're gonna be a big brother. Gonna have to look out for them same as I look out for you. Samuel yawned, eyes drooping. Ben stood, carried him inside. Ellie was at the stove, stirring something that smelled good. He ready for bed? She asked. Getting there. I'll feed him after dinner. Sounds good. They ate together at the table, venison stew, fresh bread, coffee. Talked about nothing important. About Samuel's new tooth coming in. About orders at the shop. About names for the baby. What if it's a girl? Ellie asked. Don't care. Your choice. And if it's a boy? Ben was quiet. "Thomas," he said finally. "If you want, after yours." Ellie's eyes went bright. "You'd do that? He was your son. He mattered. This way he's remembered." She reached across the table, took his hand. "And if it's a girl, we'll name her Margaret." Ben's throat closed. He nodded. After dinner, after Samuel was fed and sleeping, Ben and Ellie stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. "Hard to believe it's only been 5 months," Ellie said. "Feels like longer. Feels like forever. Like we've always been this." "Maybe we have. Maybe we just didn't know it yet." She leaned against him. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, careful of her growing belly. "Ben," she said quietly. "Yeah. I love you." The words hung in the cool evening air. Ben had wondered if he'd ever hear them from anyone again, if he'd ever be able to say them back. "I love you too," he said. And meant it. Not the same love he'd had for Margaret. Something different, built on need and grief and choosing each other every day. But real, solid, lasting. Ellie turned her face up. He kissed her soft and certain. Inside, Samuel made a sound in his sleep. They both smiled. "We should check on him," Ellie said. "In a minute." They stood there a little longer, two people who'd been broken and alone, now somehow whole together. The white fir sapling stood in the yard, its needles catching the last light. It would grow tall and strong, surviving winters and storms, marking the place where 3 broken people became a family. Not by blood, not by tradition. By choice. By grace. By love earned in the hardest ways possible. And that, Ben thought, was the only thing that mattered. The only thing that ever would. Years later, when Samuel was grown and brought his own children to visit, he'd stand by that fir, now towering and ancient, and tell them the story. About a desperate father, a grieving mother, a hungry baby who brought them together. About how family isn't always born. Sometimes it's built. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One act of love after another. About how the strongest roots grow in the darkest soil. And how mercy, when it finally comes, rarely looks like what you expected, but it's exactly what you need.